They signed disownment papers during my awards ceremony while I was on stage receiving Employee of the Year, my mother's hand shaking as she pressed the pen to the document my father had prepared weeks earlier. When the CEO named me successor to his position and announced the $2 million signing bonus, I watched from the podium as they frantically tried to grab the papers back from the lawyer they'd brought. The attorney, a stern woman in a gray suit, calmly placed the documents in her briefcase and clicked it shut, her face expressionless as my parents pleaded in urgent whispers. Behind me, the ballroom of the Grand Peninsula Hotel erupted in applause, 500 industry leaders rising to their feet while my mother's face drained of color and my father's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. I stood at the microphone holding the crystal trophy, my black evening gown reflecting the stage lights, and smiled directly at them in the third row. My father clutched his chest, and for a moment I thought he might collapse right there among the linen-draped tables. My mother grabbed his arm, her emerald necklace catching the light as she whispered something urgent in his ear. The lawyer they'd hired to make this humiliation official gathered her things and slipped out through the side door, leaving my parents to realize what they'd just done in front of everyone who mattered in our industry. I'm Victoria Sterling, the daughter my parents raised to be invisible, while my brother Derek basked in every advantage money could buy. For 28 years, I watched them pour resources into his failed business ventures and mediocre career while dismissing my achievements as luck or borrowed talent. Tonight they'd planned my ultimate humiliation, signing away their connection to me while I received what they assumed would be a participation trophy. What they didn't know was that I'd spent 6 months quietly documenting every dollar they'd stolen from my trust fund, every lie they'd told about my accomplishments, and every connection they'd deliberately sabotaged. The disownment papers they just signed weren't the end of my story. They were the beginning of theirs falling apart. The standing ovation continued as I descended from the stage, my heels clicking against the marble floor with deliberate precision. CEO Marcus Whitmore intercepted me at the bottom step, his silver hair gleaming under the chandeliers as he placed a congratulatory hand on my shoulder. Victoria, that promotion announcement wasn't planned for tonight, but after reviewing your quarterly reports, the board agreed you've earned it immediately. The transition begins Monday. My parents remained frozen in their seats while everyone around them stood applauding. Derek sat beside them, his face twisted into something between rage and disbelief. He'd worn his most expensive suit tonight, probably anticipating some announcement about his own supposed achievements. Instead, he'd just watched his little sister, whom they'd all dismissed as the family disappointment, become the youngest chief operating officer in the company's 40-year history. "Thank you, Marcus," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "I've been preparing for this opportunity for years." Marcus leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I need to tell you something. Your father contacted me last week. He suggested I reconsider your position here, claimed you'd been falsifying reports." His eyes hardened. "I had our forensic team verify every document you've ever submitted. Not only were they accurate, but we discovered some interesting discrepancies in the consultant fees we've been paying to Garrison Enterprises. My father's company." The blood rushed in my ears as Marcus continued. "We'll be terminating our contract with them next week. The irregularities suggest fraud. Our legal team will be in touch." He squeezed my shoulder once more before moving to greet other guests, leaving me standing there processing what he'd just said. I made my way through the crowd, accepting congratulations from colleagues and competitors alike. Jennifer Martinez from the marketing department hugged me tightly. "I knew you'd get it. You're the only one here who actually earned their position instead of buying it." "Speaking from experience?" The voice came from behind me. "Derek." I turned to face my brother, noting how the wine in his glass trembled slightly. His jaw was clenched so hard I could see the muscles jumping beneath his skin. "Congratulations, sister." He spat the last word like poison. "Quite a performance. Did you plan this whole spectacle? Making Mom and Dad look like fools?" "I didn't make them do anything, Derek. They chose to sign those papers during my moment. That decision was entirely theirs." I kept my voice pleasant, aware that several people nearby had turned to listen. "You always were a manipulative little snake," he hissed. "Playing the victim, making everyone think you're so perfect while sabotaging the rest of us." Sabotaging? I raised an eyebrow. Is that what you call succeeding through actual work? I'm sorry my accomplishments make your failures more obvious. His face flushed crimson. You think you've won something tonight? Wait until Dad cuts you off completely. See how far you get without the family name. The family name that I built value into? I smiled coldly. Derek, I've been financially independent since I was 22. Every promotion, every achievement, every recognition I've received has been despite the family name, not because of it. While you were spending Dad's money on your third failed startup, I was working 80-hour weeks and studying for my MBA at night. Victoria. My mother's voice interrupted us. She approached with my father, both of them looking pale and shaken. The lawyer was nowhere to be seen. We need to talk privately. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Mother. You signed disownment papers during my award ceremony. The entire industry watched you do it. That seems pretty clear to me. My father cleared his throat, attempting to regain his usual authoritative tone. Don't be dramatic. We can fix this. The lawyer still has the papers. They haven't been filed yet. Actually, Catherine filed them electronically from her phone before she left the building. I watched their faces carefully. She showed me the confirmation. As of 20 minutes ago, I'm legally no longer a Garrison. I've already submitted the paperwork to formally change my name to Sterling, my maternal grandmother's maiden name. It should be finalized by Monday. My mother clutched her pearls, literally. You planned this. You knew what we were going to do. Of course I knew. Derek couldn't keep his mouth shut about your brilliant plan to publicly disown me before I embarrassed the family with another participation trophy. I took a sip of champagne from a passing waiter's tray. What I didn't plan was Marcus announcing the COO position tonight. That was just fortunate timing. The $2 million signing bonus, my father said quietly, his face ashen. That's real? Very real, plus stock options worth another $3 million over the next 5 years, a company car, full executive benefits, and a housing allowance that will more than cover the penthouse I've already put a deposit on. I watched him process these numbers, seeing the exact moment he realized how much money he'd just lost access to. We're still your parents, my mother tried. Blood is blood, Victoria. We can work through this. No, actually, you're not. You made sure of that tonight. And frankly, it's the best gift you've ever given me. I set down my champagne glass. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to network with people who actually respect my work. I walked away from them, feeling lighter than I had in years. Behind me, I heard Derek saying something angry in a low voice, my mother's response sharp and frightened, but I didn't look back. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and business cards. I met with department heads who would now report to me, industry contacts who wanted to discuss future collaborations, and even a few competitors who respected the move enough to offer genuine praise. By the time I retrieved my coat from the check room at midnight, I'd secured 3 major deals and laid the groundwork for expanding our market share into the Asian sector. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Board meeting Tuesday 9 a.m. Bring your transition plan. This is going to be bigger than we discussed. I smiled at the screen, then noticed another message. Unknown number. I almost deleted it, but curiosity made me open it. This isn't over. You'll regret humiliating us. Derek's writing style was unmistakable even without a signature. I typed back quickly. I didn't humiliate you. You've been doing that yourself for years. I just stopped covering for it. The lobby of the Grand Peninsula was nearly empty now. Just a few stragglers collecting coats and calling cars. Through the windows, I could see the city lights stretching out below, the financial district where my new office waited, the life I'd built entirely on my own terms. My phone buzzed again. This time it was from a number I did recognize. Catherine, the lawyer. Documents filed and confirmed. Congratulations on your freedom and your promotion. Send my bill to your parents' address? I laughed out loud in the empty lobby, the sound echoing off marble walls. Yes, I typed back. They arranged your services. They can pay for them. As I stepped out into the cool night air, a black car pulled up. Not the rideshare I'd ordered, but a company vehicle. The driver rolled down the window. Miss Sterling? Mr. Whitmore arranged for executive transportation to be available to you immediately. Where would you like to go? Ms. Sterling. Not Ms. Garrison. My new name, my new title, my new life. The Metropolitan Building, I said, sliding into the leather seat. I want to see my new office. The car pulled away from the hotel, and I watched the building disappear in the side mirror. Somewhere inside, my former family was probably still arguing, still trying to figure out how their plan had backfired so spectacularly. Let them figure it out. I had work to do. The Metropolitan Building's executive floor was dark when I arrived, just security lights casting long shadows across the marble corridors. My new office occupied the corner suite on the 42nd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the harbor on one side and the city skyline on the other. I stood in the empty space, still furnished with Marcus's belongings, and felt the weight of what I'd just accomplished. My phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something made me answer. Victoria Garrison? A woman's voice, professional but urgent. Sterling, I corrected automatically. Victoria Sterling. A pause. I apologize. I'm calling from Westbridge Memorial Hospital. Your brother Derek has been admitted. He listed you as his emergency contact. My stomach dropped. What happened? He was brought in about 30 minutes ago. Possible heart attack. He's stable now, but asking for you. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. Of course he'd list me as his emergency contact. Despite everything, I was the responsible one, the one who showed up, the one who handled things. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The hospital smell hit me the moment I walked through the automatic doors. Antiseptic and fear and 2 bright fluorescent lights. A nurse directed me to the cardiac ward, 3rd floor, room 312. I found my parents in the waiting area, my mother's makeup smeared with tears, my father pacing like a caged animal. They both turned when they saw me. For a moment, nobody spoke. He's asking for you, my mother finally said, her voice small and broken. The doctor said the stress triggered it. He's only 32, Victoria. This shouldn't be happening. Where were you? My father's voice was accusatory. We tried calling you 20 times. I held up my phone. I was in my new office. The signal is spotty in the executive elevator. I didn't mention that I'd ignored the first 5 calls from them. What exactly happened? My father's face twisted. We left the hotel. Derek was driving. He started complaining about chest pains, couldn't breathe. We barely made it here. A doctor emerged from Derek's room, clipboard in hand. Family? Sister, I said. How is he? Stable. It wasn't a full heart attack, but severe angina brought on by acute stress. We're running more tests, but he needs to make significant lifestyle changes. Less stress, better diet, possibly medication. The doctor looked at me directly. He's been asking for you specifically. Says he needs to tell you something. I followed the doctor into the room. Derek looked small in the hospital bed, connected to monitors that beeped steadily. His face was gray, his usual arrogance stripped away by fear and pain. Vic, he whispered when he saw me. He hadn't called me that since we were children. I need to tell you something before Dad finds out. I pulled a chair close to his bed. What is it? The consultant fees Marcus mentioned. The fraud investigation. Derek's eyes filled with tears. That was me. I've been billing the company through Dad's business for work I never did. 18 months of fake invoices, over $400,000. The room seemed to tilt. Derek, what the hell were you thinking? I was desperate. My business failed. Again, I owed people money. Bad people, Vic. The kind who don't just sue you, they break things. His hand trembled as he reached for mine. Dad doesn't know. I forged his signatures on the invoices. When the audit hits, he'll be ruined. The business, his reputation, everything. And you're telling me this why? Because you're the only one smart enough to fix it. I saw what you did tonight, how you played everyone. You can make this go away. You have access now, you're going to be COO. You can bury the evidence, claim it was a clerical error or something. I pulled my hand away. You want me to commit fraud to cover up your fraud? I'm your brother. His voice broke. We're family. No, I said quietly. We're not, remember? You watched Mom and Dad sign the papers. You encouraged them. You texted me threats less than 2 hours ago. I was angry. I didn't mean it. Please, Vic. They'll go to prison. Mom and Dad will lose everything. I stood up, looking down at him. You should have thought about that before you stole $400,000, and before you convinced our parents to publicly disown me. It wasn't my idea. Dad planned it weeks ago. I just thought it was funny, watching you get what you deserved for always being so perfect. What I deserved? My voice was ice. I worked my way up from entry level while you coasted on Dad's name and money. I earned every promotion while you failed at every business venture and blamed everyone else. And tonight, when I finally received recognition for years of work, you all decided to humiliate me in front of the entire industry. We didn't know about the promotion, Derek said weakly. We thought you were just getting Employee of the Year. We were going to make it look like we disowned you because you weren't good enough for the Garrison name. It was supposed to be funny. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. Funny. I'm sorry, we were wrong, but please, you can't let them investigate. Dad will go to prison. That's not my problem anymore, Derek. You made sure of that tonight. I moved toward the door. Wait! He struggled to sit up, the monitors beeping faster. I have information about your trust fund, the one Grandma Sterling left you when she died. Dad's been stealing from it for years. That's how he's kept his business afloat. There's barely anything left. I stopped, my hand on the door handle. How much? The trust was originally worth $3.2 million. There's maybe $200,000 left. He's been taking $50,000 here, $75,000 there, covering it with fake investment losses and accounting errors. Derek's words came faster now, desperate. I have proof, documents, transfer records, everything. I was going to use it as leverage if he ever cut me off. I'll give it all to you if you help me. You'll give it to me anyway, I said calmly. Because if you don't, I'll make sure the fraud investigation includes your medical records from tonight. Interesting timing, don't you think? A stress-induced cardiac event on the same night your schemes were about to be exposed? His face went even paler. You wouldn't. Send me everything you have on the trust fund by tomorrow morning. Every document, every transfer, every piece of evidence. If I don't have it by 9 a.m., I'm calling Marcus personally and telling him about your confession tonight. But then Dad goes to prison anyway. Yes, I agreed. But this way, I also get back what he stole from me, and you learn an important lesson about using family as leverage. I left Derek staring after me, his protests following me down the hallway. My parents stood up as I emerged, hope naked on their faces. What did he say? My mother asked. Is he going to be okay? Ask him yourself, I replied. I'm going home. Victoria, wait. My father moved to block my path. We need to talk about what happened tonight. We made a mistake. We let anger and jealousy cloud our judgment. Derek convinced us you were trying to make us look bad, that you'd been undermining the family for years. And you believed him. He's our son. You're our daughter. We should have trusted you both equally. He paused. The lawyer said the disownment can be reversed. It's not too late. I looked at this man who'd raised me, who'd dismissed my achievements and stolen my inheritance, who'd planned my public humiliation and only regretted it when it backfired. It's much too late, Dad. You made your choice. Now live with it. Please, my mother said. We're still your parents. We love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have signed those papers. You wouldn't have stolen from my trust fund. You wouldn't have tried to sabotage my career. I watched their faces change as they realized I knew. Derek talked quite a bit just now. Stress makes people confess things. My father's face hardened. Whatever he said, he's medicated and confused. You can't trust anything he told you. I can verify it easily enough. I have friends in forensic accounting. By Wednesday, I'll know exactly how much you've stolen and where it went. I smiled without warmth. The company audit of Garrison Enterprises starts Monday. I suggest you get your affairs in order. I walked past them, their protests fading as I reached the elevator. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number with an attachment. As requested, delete this text after downloading. D. Derek had sent the trust fund documents from his hospital bed. I downloaded the files and deleted the message, then scrolled through page after page of evidence. Account transfers, forged signatures, fake investment reports. Everything I needed to destroy my father financially and legally. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor. My reflection stared back at me from the polished walls. A woman in an evening gown holding a phone full of ammunition. I looked different somehow. Sharper, harder, free. My driver was waiting in the circular drive. Home, Ms. Sterling? Actually, take me to the Meridian Tower, the penthouse I put a deposit on. I want to see where I'll be living. The car merged into late-night traffic. Through the window, I could see the hospital behind us lit up against the dark sky. Somewhere in there, my brother was learning what betrayal felt like. My parents were realizing their mistake. And I was driving away from all of it, toward a life built entirely on my own terms. My phone rang again. Marcus. Victoria, sorry to call so late. Something's come up. The board moved the transition meeting to Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. Can you make it? I'll be there. Good. And Victoria, whatever happened with your family tonight, leave it behind. You've got bigger things ahead of you. Already done, I said, and meant it. Monday morning arrived with gray clouds promising rain. I stood in front of my closet in the penthouse, selecting a charcoal suit that meant business. The apartment was still mostly empty, just a mattress on the floor and unpacked boxes, but the view made everything worthwhile. 43 floors above the city, I could see the harbor in one direction and the financial district in the other. My kingdom, earned through 8 years of grinding work. My phone buzzed with messages I'd been ignoring all weekend. 17 from my mother, 9 from my father, 32 from Derek. I deleted them all without reading and called a car. The Metropolitan Building's lobby was busy with morning traffic, executives and assistants flooding toward the elevators. I rode up to 42, nodding to colleagues who now called me by my new title. The transition meeting was in the main conference room, a glass-walled space overlooking the city. Marcus was already there with the board members, 7 men and 3 women who represented the company's major shareholders. They all stood when I entered. Victoria, thank you for coming early. Marcus gestured to the seat at his right hand. We have a situation that's accelerated your transition timeline considerably. I sat down, keeping my expression neutral. What situation? The fraud investigation into Garrison Enterprises has uncovered more than we initially suspected. Marcus slid a folder across the table. Our forensic team worked through the weekend. The consultant fees were just the beginning. There are dozens of fraudulent invoices spanning 3 years, totaling over $1.2 million. My stomach tightened, but I kept my face calm. 1.2 million. The scheme appears to have started small, legitimate consulting work billed at inflated rates. Then it progressed to billing for services never rendered, fake project codes, forged authorization signatures, entire fictional contracts. Marcus looked at me directly. Did you know about any of this? No. The lie came easily. My relationship with my father's company has been minimal for years, but you're listed as a junior partner in Garrison Enterprises. One of the board members, an older woman named Patricia Chen, spoke up. Your name is on the incorporation documents. The room went very quiet. I felt every eye on me. I was listed as a partner when I turned 21, I said carefully. A formality for inheritance purposes. I've never taken an active role in the company, never received distributions, never participated in business decisions. I can provide documentation showing I resigned from that position 2 years ago when my father refused to remove me from the paperwork. Do you have that resignation in writing? Patricia pressed. I do. I sent it via certified mail and kept copies of everything, including the delivery confirmation. My father never acknowledged it, but legally my intent to separate from the company is documented. Marcus nodded slowly. That's good, because the FBI is getting involved. The amount of fraud crosses the threshold for federal charges. Anyone with ownership stake in Garrison Enterprises could face criminal liability. The weight of this settled over me. My father hadn't just stolen from the company. He'd built a massive fraud scheme that could take down everyone associated with his business, including me if I wasn't careful. I want full cooperation from all departments, Marcus continued. Victoria, I know this is your family, but we need complete transparency. Anything you know about Garrison Enterprises operations, any documents or communications you might have, I need you to turn them over to our legal team. Of course. I pulled out my phone. I actually received some information over the weekend. My brother contacted me after his cardiac event Friday night. He was worried about the investigation and wanted my help covering things up. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. I forwarded Derek's documents to Marcus's email right there at the table. These are financial records my brother kept as insurance. They detail fraudulent activity at Garrison Enterprises, including the theft of funds from my personal trust account. I met Marcus's eyes. My father has been stealing from my inheritance for years to prop up his failing business. These documents prove it. Marcus opened the files on his laptop, his expression darkening as he scrolled through. This is substantial. Patricia, get our legal team on the phone. Victoria, I need you to walk them through everything you know. For the next 2 hours, I laid out the situation piece by piece. Derek's confession, the trust fund theft, my parents' attempt to publicly disown me as a preemptive move before their schemes unraveled. The board listened, taking notes, asking sharp questions. I answered everything honestly, holding nothing back. By 10 a.m., they'd agreed to separate the company completely from Garrison Enterprises, terminate all contracts immediately, and cooperate fully with federal investigators. They'd also agreed to cover my legal fees for recovering my stolen inheritance. This is going to be a media nightmare, Patricia said. New COO's family under FBI investigation. The optics are terrible. The optics of protecting fraud are worse, I countered. I can handle the media. I'll make it clear that I've been estranged from my family's business practices for years, that I resigned from any partnership role, and that I'm cooperating fully with authorities. We spin this as my professional integrity winning out over family loyalty. Marcus smiled grimly. She's right. We support our COO, distance ourselves from the fraud, and let the chips fall where they may. He looked at me. You're officially the chief operating officer as of this moment. Think you can handle your first crisis? I've been handling crises alone for years, I said. This is just the first one with resources behind me. The meeting adjourned and I headed to my new office. Marcus's belongings had been moved over the weekend, replaced by temporary furniture and my own boxes brought from my old desk. The space was enormous, with that corner view I'd seen Friday night and a private conference room attached. My assistant, Melissa, was waiting with coffee and a schedule. You have 3 interview requests from business journalists, a call scheduled with our legal team at 1 p.m., and your father is in the lobby demanding to see you. I took the coffee. Tell security my father is not permitted on this floor. If he refuses to leave, have them call the police for trespassing. Melissa's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. Understood. Also, there's a federal agent who'd like to speak with you at your convenience. Agent Morrison. I have his card. Schedule him for 2 p.m., conference room B. I settled behind my desk, looking out at the city. Somewhere down there, my father was probably losing his mind. My mother was crying, and Derek was recovering while his entire world crumbled. And Melissa? I'm going to need a new phone number, personal cell. Make sure only essential contacts have it. Of course. Anything else? Yes. Pull all contracts and correspondence we have with Garrison Enterprises for the past 5 years. I want to review everything before I meet with Agent Morrison. She left, and I opened my laptop, diving into the corporate records. The scope of my father's fraud was even worse than Derek had indicated. Fake contracts, inflated hours, project codes that didn't exist in our system. He'd been stealing from the company that had just made me COO, using my name and connections to legitimize his schemes. My phone rang. New number already programmed. Dad, do not answer. I watched it ring through to voicemail, then blocked the number. At 1 p.m., I met with the legal team. They walked me through what to expect from federal investigators, how to protect myself legally, and what documents would help establish my distance from my father's business. They also started the process of recovering my stolen trust fund, filing civil suits against my father personally. "This will get ugly," the lead attorney warned. "He'll claim you knew about everything, that you're betraying family to save your career. The media will eat it up." "Let them," I said. "I have documentation proving otherwise. And frankly, the truth is on my side." Agent Morrison arrived at 2 p.m., a serious man in his late 40s with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. He set up a recording device on the conference table. "Ms. Sterling, thank you for meeting with me. I understand this is a difficult situation." "It's necessary," I replied. "What do you need to know?" For an hour, I answered his questions. Yes, I'd been listed as a partner. No, I'd never been involved in operations. Yes, I'd resigned 2 years ago. No, I hadn't known about the fraud until Friday. Yes, I had documents proving my father stole from my trust fund. No, I would not protect him. Agent Morrison leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You're very calm about this. Most people would be emotional when their family is facing federal charges." "My family disowned me publicly on Friday night while I was receiving an award. They signed legal documents severing our relationship. I'm simply accepting their decision and moving forward." I met his gaze. If they broke laws, they should face consequences, family or not. The brother, Derek Garrison, he's cooperating? He gave me documents implicating my father in trust fund theft. Beyond that, I can't speak to his willingness to cooperate with federal investigators. Agent Morrison smiled slightly. He lawyered up Saturday morning, trying to negotiate immunity in exchange for testimony. Smart kid. Your brother. "He's not my brother anymore," I said quietly. "We're not family. They made sure of that." After Agent Morrison left, I sat alone in my office watching storm clouds roll in across the harbor. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "They arrested Dad an hour ago. FBI raided the house and the office. Mom's hysterical. Derek got immunity deal. This is all your fault. R. Rachel, my cousin." I'd forgotten she existed until that moment. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up the security footage from Friday night that I'd requested from the hotel. I watched my parents sign the disownment papers, Derek's smug expression, their certainty that they were humiliating me. I saved the video to 3 different secure locations. Then I called my attorney. "I want to hold a press conference tomorrow, 2 p.m. I need to control the narrative before it controls me." "Are you sure that's wise? We could issue a statement instead." "I'm sure. Set it up." Tuesday afternoon, I stood in the Metropolitan Building's media room facing 20 journalists and twice as many cameras. I'd dressed carefully, navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back, professional, composed, unshakable. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I'm Victoria Sterling, newly appointed Chief Operating Officer of Whitmore Industries. I'm here to address questions about the ongoing federal investigation into Garrison Enterprises." Hands shot up immediately. I pointed to a reporter from the Business Journal. "Ms. Sterling, isn't it true that you were a partner in Garrison Enterprises? How can you claim no knowledge of the fraud?" "I was listed as a junior partner for inheritance purposes when I turned 21. I never participated in business operations, never received distributions, and formally resigned from that position 2 years ago via certified letter. I have documentation proving my repeated attempts to distance myself from my father's company." Another reporter. "Your timing seems convenient. You resigned 2 years ago, just before a major fraud scheme comes to light." "I resigned because my father refused to respect my boundaries or my career path. I built my career at Whitmore Industries entirely separately from any family connection. The fraud investigation is the result of routine audits, not my actions." "But you provided documents to federal investigators," a third reporter pressed. "Documents that directly implicate your father." I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. My father stole over $2 million from my personal trust fund over a period of 6 years, money my grandmother left me to build my own life. When I discovered this theft, I reported it to authorities. The fact that this connected to larger fraud schemes is not my responsibility. I'm simply seeking justice for what was stolen from me. The room erupted in questions. I held up my hand for silence. "I want to be clear about something. Last Friday night, while I was on stage receiving Employee of the Year and being promoted to COO, my parents signed legal documents disowning me. They did this publicly, in front of hundreds of industry professionals, because they believed I was an embarrassment to the family name. I pulled out my phone and brought up the hotel security footage. I have video evidence of this moment. They planned to humiliate me, assuming I was receiving a minor award. Instead, they severed our legal relationship just as I achieved the highest position of my career. The journalists were scribbling frantically. I continued. I learned over the weekend that this disownment was preemptive. They knew fraud investigations were coming and wanted to distance themselves from me before I could distance myself from them. They assumed I would be an easier target for investigators if they publicly rejected me first. I paused. They miscalculated. I will not protect people who stole from me, who humiliated me, who used my name and connections for illegal purposes. Family or not, criminals should face justice. A young reporter in the back raised her hand. Are you saying your entire family was involved in the fraud? I'm saying my father orchestrated it. My brother participated knowingly, and my mother likely knew more than she's admitting. I was deliberately kept separate from their business operations specifically so they could use my name without my knowledge or consent. Do you feel betrayed? I looked directly at the camera. I feel validated. For years I was told I wasn't good enough, that my accomplishments didn't matter, that I would always be secondary to my brother's potential. Friday night proved otherwise. I earned my position through merit while they were building houses of cards. Now those cards are falling, and I refuse to be buried in the rubble. After the press conference, the story exploded across business news and social media. The headlines were brutal. New COO exposes family fraud. Disowned daughter destroys father's empire. Trust fund theft when family betrays family. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with interview requests, messages of support from colleagues, and a few angry texts from extended family members I barely knew. I ignored them all and focused on work. Wednesday morning brought unexpected news. Marcus called me into his office looking grim. Your father's attorney called. He wants to negotiate. I sat down slowly. Negotiate what? He's offering to plead guilty to reduced charges if you'll give a statement supporting leniency. Claims you're his daughter, that mercy is warranted, that he made mistakes but doesn't deserve decades in prison. And if I refuse? His attorney implied they'd make the trial ugly, paint you as vindictive, claim you manipulated evidence, suggest you were more involved than you're admitting. Marcus looked at me seriously. They'll try to destroy your credibility to save him. I thought about the hotel video, Derek's confession, the documented trust fund theft. Let them try. I have evidence they can't refute, and I'm not giving him mercy he never showed me. You're sure? This could get brutal. I'm sure. He chose to commit crimes. He chose to steal from me. He chose to publicly humiliate me. I'm just choosing not to save him from his own decisions. That afternoon, my attorney called. Your mother wants to meet with you. Private meeting, no recording, just the two of you. Why? She claims she has information you need to hear, about your grandmother. Grandmother Sterling, the woman who'd left me the trust fund my father had stolen. I hesitated, then agreed. Neutral location, public place, tomorrow morning. We met at a coffee shop downtown, an anonymous chain where no one would recognize us. My mother looked terrible, haggard, and aged beyond her years. She stood when I entered, reaching out as if to hug me, but I stepped back. Thank you for coming, she said quietly, sitting down. What information about Grandmother Sterling? My mother twisted her hands together. She knew. Your grandmother knew what kind of man your father was. That's why she set up the trust fund the way she did, with me listed as backup trustee if your father tried to access it. I went cold. You were supposed to protect that money. I tried. God. Victoria? I tried. But your father forged documents, threatened to divorce me and leave me with nothing, said he'd make sure I never saw you or Derek again. Tears rolled down her face. I was weak. I should have fought harder, but I was scared. So you let him steal from your own daughter. I didn't know how much he was taking until it was too late. By then, I was complicit. If I'd reported it, I would have gone to prison too. She reached across the table. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, But your grandmother, she left you something else. Something your father never knew about. What? A safety deposit box at First National Bank. She gave me the key years ago with instructions to give it to you if anything happened to the trust fund. My mother pulled a small key from her purse. I should have given this to you when you turned 25 like she asked. But your father found out about it and threatened me. I hid it instead. I took the key, studying it. What's in the box? I don't know. She never told me. But she said it would protect you when you needed it most. Why are you giving this to me now? My mother's face crumpled. Because I already lost you. The disownment, the investigation, watching you on television yesterday saying you won't protect us. I realized I chose wrong. I chose your father over you. Security over courage. Your grandmother was right about everything. About him, about me, about you being the only one strong enough to break free. This doesn't fix anything, I said, pocketing the key. You watched him steal from me for years. You watched him plan my public humiliation. You signed those papers Friday night. I know. I just wanted you to have what your grandmother intended. Whatever's in that box, it's yours. It's the least I can do after failing you so completely. I stood up to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you find the courage to do the right thing. Turn state's evidence against Dad. Protect Derek as best you can. And stop being a victim of your own choices. I left her crying into her coffee and went straight to First National Bank. The safety deposit box was small, accessible only with the key and proper identification. The bank manager verified my identity, checked the account records, and led me to a private viewing room. Inside the box was a letter in my grandmother's handwriting and a thick folder of documents. I opened the letter first. My dearest Victoria, if you're reading this, then something has gone terribly wrong with your trust fund, and your mother finally found the courage to give you this key. I'm writing this on your 18th birthday, hoping you'll never need what I'm about to tell you. But knowing the kind of man your father is, you probably will. 23 years ago, before you were born, your father approached me asking for a substantial loan to start his business. I agreed, but I was never repaid. Instead, he forged documents suggesting the loan was actually an investment, giving him partial ownership of my mother's estate holdings. When I discovered this, I had to pay him nearly $800,000 in settlement to avoid a protracted legal battle that would have destroyed the family. I documented everything: the original loan agreement, the forged documents, evidence of his fraud. I kept it as insurance, knowing that if he ever targeted you the way he targeted me, you'd need weapons to fight back. The documents in this box prove your father has a history of financial fraud spanning decades. They also prove he's lied under oath multiple times in civil proceedings. If he's arrested for fraud, as I suspect he will be if he's stolen from your trust, these documents will destroy any credibility he has in court. Use them wisely. Use them ruthlessly. And remember, family is what we choose, not what we're born into. You were always my greatest joy, Victoria. I'm sorry I won't be there to see you become the force of nature I know you'll be. All my love, Grandmother Sterling. I sat in that small room reading through decades of evidence. Bank records, forged signatures, sworn testimony from my father in civil cases that directly contradicted what these documents proved. My grandmother had built a complete case file against him, waiting for the day he'd finally pushed too far. That day had arrived. I called Agent Morrison from the bank. I have additional evidence regarding my father's pattern of fraud. Historical documents spanning 23 years. Can you meet me today? 2 hours later, I handed over everything to the FBI. Agent Morrison's face went pale as he reviewed the materials. This changes everything. The statute of limitations has passed on most of this, but it establishes clear pattern and practice. And this testimony here, he pointed to a deposition transcript, directly contradicts statements your father made to our investigators last week. That's a federal felony on its own. How long will he go to prison? With what we already had? 5 to 7 years, maybe. With this, Agent Morrison looked at me. 20 to 25, minimum. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, no sadness. Just a hollow certainty that justice was finally balancing scales that had been tipped against me my entire life. Will you need me to testify? Probably not. This is so damning he'll almost certainly take a plea deal. His attorney would be insane to let this go to trial. I left the FBI field office as the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Board meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. We're expanding your role. Hope you're ready. Ready? Was I ready? I'd just handed federal investigators evidence that would destroy my father. I'd refused mercy for the man who raised me. I'd chosen my career and my integrity over family loyalty. Yes, I thought, looking up at the Metropolitan Building's lights blazing against the darkening sky. I was ready for whatever came next. 3 months later, I stood in the same courtroom where my father's fate was being sealed. The room was packed with journalists, federal prosecutors, and a few scattered family members I barely recognized. Derek sat in the back, having already testified against our father in exchange for immunity. My mother sat alone in the front row, her face a mask of resignation. The judge read the sentence: 22 years in federal prison for fraud, theft, money laundering, and perjury. My father stood as the verdict was announced, his expensive suit hanging loose on a frame that had lost 20 pounds since his arrest. He turned to look at me once, his eyes full of something between hatred and disbelief. I met his gaze without flinching. This was the man who'd stolen my inheritance, attempted to destroy my career, and publicly disowned me to save himself. He'd made his choices. Now he'd live with them. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I made a brief statement. Justice has been served. I hope this sends a message that no one is above the law, regardless of their name or connections. I'm grateful to the FBI and federal prosecutors for their thorough work. Do you have any message for your father? Someone shouted. No, I said simply, and walked to my waiting car. The Metropolitan Building had become my sanctuary over those 3 months. My corner office was now fully furnished, decorated with awards and photographs from industry events. My team respected me, my decisions were implemented swiftly, and the company was thriving under my operational leadership. Marcus had announced his retirement, effective in 6 months. The board had already voted. I would be the next CEO, the youngest in the company's history. At 29 years old, I'd achieved everything my family said I never would. The trust fund had been recovered in full, plus damages. $2.8 million, returned with interest. I'd invested most of it in real estate and blue-chip stocks, keeping my grandmother's financial wisdom close. The penthouse was fully furnished now, a space that reflected who I'd become: successful, independent, uncompromising. Derek tried to rebuild his relationship with me twice. The first time, I ignored his calls. The second time, I agreed to meet him for coffee, mostly out of curiosity about what he could possibly say. I'm sorry, he started, looking genuinely remorseful. For everything. The hospital confession, testifying against Dad, all of it. I was trying to save myself. I know, I replied. That's the only honest thing you've ever done. Can we have some kind of relationship? You're the only family I have left. I considered this. Derek had faced no criminal charges thanks to his cooperation, but his reputation was destroyed. No company would hire him. His business connections had evaporated, and he was living in a studio apartment working as a sales associate at an electronics store. I'll make you an offer, I said finally. I'll help you get your MBA. I'll pay for school, cover your living expenses while you study, and give you one recommendation letter when you graduate. After that, you're on your own. No more bailouts, no more second chances. Why would you do that? Because Grandmother Sterling would have wanted me to. She believed in education and second chances. But understand this, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I can, because I choose to, and because it proves I'm better than the people who raised us. He took the offer. I heard he was doing well in his program, actually studying for once instead of coasting on charm. We exchanged emails occasionally, always professional, never personal. He was my former brother, someone I'd once known, nothing more. My mother sold the family home after my father went to prison, downsizing to a small condo and taking a job at a nonprofit helping women escape financial abuse. We spoke once every few months, stilted conversations where she asked about my work, and I gave minimal responses. The trust between us was gone, probably forever. I'm proud of you, she said during one call. Your grandmother would be too. I wish she'd been the one to raise me, I replied honestly. Things might have been different. They might have, my mother agreed quietly. But you turned out remarkable anyway, in spite of us, not because of us. It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. 6 months after my father's sentencing, Whitmore Industries held a ceremony formally announcing my promotion to CEO. The same ballroom where I'd been disowned, the same stage where everything had changed. This time, Marcus handed me a plaque commemorating my new position while 500 people applauded genuinely, without the undercurrent of my family's poisonous presence. In my acceptance speech, I thanked my team, acknowledged Marcus's mentorship, and shared my vision for the company's future. I didn't mention my family once. They'd been erased from my narrative, relegated to cautionary tales I sometimes shared with young professionals about the importance of building your own path. That evening, I stood alone in my penthouse looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed with congratulations from colleagues, friends, and professional contacts. No messages from anyone named Garrison. I thought about Friday night 3 months ago, watching my parents sign those disownment papers while I stood on stage. At the time, it had felt like the worst betrayal imaginable. Now I understood it for what it was. Freedom. They'd given me permission to stop caring what they thought, to stop seeking approval that would never come, to stop being held back by family expectations and inherited shame. In trying to destroy me, they'd accidentally liberated me. My grandmother had understood this. That's why she'd left me the safety deposit box, the evidence, the tools I needed to fight back. She'd known that someday I'd have to choose between family loyalty and my own integrity, and she'd made sure I had the ammunition to choose correctly. I poured a glass of wine and toasted the city lights, the office building where I now held the highest position, the life I'd built entirely through my own merit and determination. Thank you, grandmother, I said aloud to the empty room. You were right about everything. My phone buzzed one more time, a text from an unknown number. Saw the news about your CEO promotion. Congratulations. You earned it. I'm sorry for everything we put you through. I hope someday you can forgive us. Dad. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed anyone, especially not the man who'd spent 22 years proving he didn't deserve it. I blocked the number and returned my attention to the city below, to the future I was building one deliberate choice at a time. The disownment papers had severed our legal relationship. My success had severed everything else. They'd tried to destroy me in front of everyone who mattered. Instead, they destroyed themselves while I ascended to heights they'd never imagined possible. Justice, I'd learned, wasn't about revenge. It was about becoming so successful that their betrayal seemed like a gift in retrospect. It was about building a life so far beyond their reach that their opinions became irrelevant. It was about proving, definitively and publicly, that I never needed them at all. I raised my glass to the city one more time, then turned away from the window. I had a company to run, a future to build, and absolutely no time to waste looking back at people who'd already proven they weren't worth my attention. The Garrison family had disowned me. I'd spent 3 months showing them exactly what they'd lost, and I was just getting started.